I think I have my first daisy. I'm super excited. There it is, my first daisy. Hello, Daisy. Now, Peaches thinks that there's a baby rabbit in here, and she might be right. We have lots of rabbits. So she's always trampling in the daisies. You gotta not do that, girly. Yeah, I'm testing my microphone setup. Hello. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, her lamb was sure to go. Hello, friends. Oh, babe, so I need to raise it up. You raise me up so I can climb on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can see. Yeah, so I'm going to check out the microphone situation because last week I had problems. So hello there, friends. Welcome to my channel, Soulful Spinning. This is a channel about creating and using handspun yarn and other forays into fiber arts. So welcome to my channel today. Today is the 28th of June, 2022, and I'm coming to you right outside of Chicago in the great Midwest of the US. Today I'm having some coffee in this beautiful mug that I received from a friend. Thank you, Doro, for the Polish pottery, which I adore, absolutely adore. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for checking me out today if you're a new viewer, and thank you so much for continuing to come back and supporting the channel. I was gone for a little while I finished up my school year and returned just recently back to YouTube, and I got a great warm welcome from many of you, and I welcome and was happy to receive all of your comments and messages, and it's just nice to know that there are people out there that share the same love of fiber and craft as I do. So in today's lesson, can you tell that I was a school teacher? I used to write on the board learning target for the day and what we were going to do for the day. So in today's video, are you still with me? In today's video, I'm going to share with you mainly a fleece that I've been working with. I've got quite a bit of B-roll of me processing a merino fleece. That'll be the heart of the episode. And I'll show some spindle spinning, handspun project I've been working on, a finished handspun project. And then I'll close today with a few books that I've been finding inspiration in recently. One fiber related and one not fiber related. As usual, you can find all of the timestamps. If you click on the video, you can see the different chapters, and you can jump to the sections of the video that you're interested in. So without further ado, let me show you the first thing I wanted to talk about is this fleece. I'm rolling my eyes at myself, you guys, because I'm not a professional. But anyways, here is a lock of this fleece that I've been working on. This is the raw lock. It's a fine merino fleece. I saved two of the raw locks because I wanted to compare how it looked before and after washing. It's a beautiful brown merino fleece. So I had some people interested in how I wash my fleeces, so I did film the process of soaking and washing this fleece, and I'll insert that video here, and I'll be right back to talk a little bit about the fleece. So this is my fleece from Harvey Farms. I had taken it out and separated. This section was more from the front, right around the neck and the front shoulders. And I had a request to show how I process the fleece. So I thought I'd take you along and explain my process. So here I have a little bit over a pound, 1 pound, 2.6 ounces. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in a mesh bag and let it cold soak. And it looks quite clean, but because it's brown, it's not showing all the dirt, as you will see all the dirt that comes out of this in the cold wash. So I have a bucket out here in my garden. I'm going to soak it, and I usually soak it overnight is best, but several hours for sure. So I'll soak it once, and then I'll drain the water. I use it as fertilizer for some of the plants, and then I'll just rinse it again in fresh cold water. And after those 2 cold rinses, the fleece is remarkably clean. It has very little dirt left and just the grease, and I want to get rid of the grease for processing. So this is my this is my brown merino fleece. It's so beautiful, you guys. I'm really excited about this fleece. I think it's going to make a beautiful, beautiful yarn. By putting it in this mesh bag, it maintains the lock structure. And so when I'm handling the fleece during the washing process, I don't touch the fleece, I can only touch the bag. So a lot of times what I'll do is when I put it in the water, I will sort of open up the bag a little bit, really let the water get into the fleece and move around a little bit, and then I can easily, you know, pick it up to drain. I'll let it fill, and then I'll just kind of soak it in here. No danger in felting because there's no heat or agitation here. It's just ice cold water. You can see, I think you can see all that brown stuff? That's coming out of the fleece. It's dirt. And God knows what else. Yeah, so I will submerge it here in cold water. And let it soak for several hours. I'll probably wait till maybe late this afternoon. It's early morning now, or mid-morning. I'll let it soak. Late afternoon, I'll dump it, put some fresh water in, let it cold soak overnight. And then the next day, tomorrow, I'll go ahead and do the hot scour. And by doing this process, I found that I only have to hot scour once and rinse once or twice, and the fleece is clean. So it's the next day, and my pound of raw fiber has been soaking. I went, this morning I got up and I changed the water once, and now I am ready to take the wool out of the bucket here, kind of squeeze out the excess water gently, and proceed with the hot scour. So the water is pretty clean already. After the first rinse, quite a bit of dirt came out. So I take it out. I'm just going to lay it in the shade here. And then this water, I'm going to go ahead and water some of my potted plants with it. Fleece, so I'm using this galvanized bucket here. I have no idea how big it is, but I just find that washing smaller batches is a lot easier on me in terms of carrying, carrying the fleece, carrying the hot soapy water out to the yard. So I do these small batches, and I really have found that it's the best way. If I try to wash the whole fleece at one go, I usually don't have a very good result. But I suppose if you had a super large container with plenty of room for the fleece to move around, you'd be safe in putting half the fleece or a whole fleece in. But I like to do 1 pound at a time here. I'm in my laundry room. This is where I do my hot scouring. And to scour just means to subject the fleece to detergent and super hot water to dislodge all the lanolin. So I find it easier to process in spin a fleece that has most of the lanolin removed. So from here, and for today's scour, I'm going to use this product right here. This is Kookaburra. I bought it in a gallon jug, and as you can see, I have very little left. I like Kookaburra for scouring. It is pretty economical. It works very well, but also I sometimes use this. I'm sure you've heard of Unicorn Power Scour as well. I really find that they work equally well. The Kookaburra has a great fresh tea tree scent, which I quite like, and it kind of leaves a nice conditioning treatment to your wool. So the directions say to use, I believe, what does it say here? 1 to 2 ounces per pound of wool. So what I've been using is this, just from my regular detergent, because it's got a 1 ounce gauge on there, and I'm going to use 1 ounce for this pound of wool. I take the wool, it's been drained, take the wool out. I have my hot water heater set pretty high, and I'm going to go ahead and start running it and get it quite hot. Starting to get hot now. Okay. And I'm going to fill the galvanized tub. I like washing in the metal tub. I feel like it holds the heat a little bit better, but I have used plastic tubs as well. There's a variety of containers you could use for this process. So I'm going to fill this up and measure out my Kookaburra, and then add some hot water from the kettle, and then I will let the fleece soak. What's nice about a dedicated scouring agent is you don't get a lot of suds, and you don't have to rinse quite as much. So if you use Dawn or something like that, you're going to have to rinse a little bit more if you want to get all the soap out. So then I just use this mini plunger that I have bought specifically for this purpose, and to stir it up. It's quite hot. I don't touch the water at this point because it's quite hot. I'll use heavy-duty gloves to protect my hands. I always fill the soap in. I don't want a ton of suds in the water. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab the tea kettle, add that in, and then we'll pop the fleece in there. So always use care when you're carrying hot water around the house. Just really be mindful of what you're doing. I'm just adding this in just to get the temperature up a little bit. For a particularly greasy fleece like this one, this is 100% merino, you really want a very, very hot water. So I'm just going to let it set it in there. Let it kind of sink on its own. Switch my hands here. And then what I do is I take my plunger and I gently plunge it in. So you could see that the water is not brown, it's mostly white. And that is the lanolin that's starting to melt here for the fleece. So I will let that sit, being careful, being very gentle, not to agitate, because now it is at a precarious place right here. You have heat, you have soap, and you have agitation, and that is your recipe for felting. So here is where you want to really use extreme caution so as to not felt your fleece. And according to the Clemmis & Clemmis website, it says that you should get the water to be between 140 and 160. There we go. So that looks good. So I use these really heavy duty gloves that I got at the hardware store if I'm going to handle this fleece at this high temperature. So what I'll often do, and I don't know if this helps or not, but I will open up the bag a little bit like this and gently give it a gentle very gentle push into the water. So the goal here is to get that fleece so that the water can get within the lock structure. Because if it's all clumped up, you're not going to get the grease out. So you can see all the lanolin is coming out of the fleece here. So what I'm going to do next is just set the timer for 30 minutes, and then every 10 or 15 minutes I'm going to add a little bit more hot water to maintain that temperature. And then that's all this will require is one hot scour. And then I'll do 1 to 2 rinses at the same temperature depending on how the water is running as I rinse the fleece. So I just removed the fleece out of the hot water, and this is what it looks like. All that white is the waxy lanolin that came out of the fleece. So I don't like to put this down my pipes. Just worry about the fat, the greasing up the pipe. So what I do is I put in a bucket of water and I lug it outside, which is kind of a pain, but you know, a little exercise. And now I've opened up the fleece just a little bit in its bag, and I have going to do the first rinse here. I took the temperature of the water. It was about 150. It's fogging up the camera lens, but you could see pretty clean. No dirt, just some grease. So I'm going to do 2 rinses and see how clear. I want the water to be relatively clear to see if I can get the most grease I can get out. There's always going to be a little left in, especially with a high grease fleece like this. So I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cover up my fleece with some aluminum foil just to keep the temperature high, and do a second rinse. So I finished my second rinse of my fleece, and you can see that the water is quite clean. So pretty clean. I'm just going to set it over here in the other tub. And because this has very little grease, it's mostly rinse water, this I feel pretty comfortable letting down the drain. Last rinse, and in this last rinse I'm going to put a little bit of the Kookaburra wash, which I really like for a conditioning treatment. It sort of acts like a conditioning treatment, like a fiber rinse. So I'm going to fill up this 2-gallon tub with hot water again. I set my hot water heater to a high temperature, so it's about 140 degrees at its hottest. So I'm pretty much maintaining the temperature throughout the whole process. I mostly worry about going from hot to cold. Hot to cold, it seems to be the kiss of death for fleeces. You can always put your fleece in hotter water, but you don't want to go from hot to cold. That's going to shock it and potentially felt the fleece. So I'm just going to fill this up probably about halfway. I'm lucky enough to live in the Midwest where we have the Great Lakes and we have plenty of water, though I am cognizant of the amount of water usage that I use here. So yeah, so then I'm going to just go ahead and grab a little Kookaburra. This smells really, really good. I really like this. It's got a little squeeze thingy. As a matter of fact, you can buy this container of scouring agent in the same, and then it's got a very convenient measuring here. That's a ½ an ounce, and then the upper line is 1 ounce. So I'm just going to put it in there. Not all of it there. Oh, it smells really good. And I don't rinse this one. I use this to wash my hand knits and my silks, and rinsing is optional, so it's sort of like a Eucalan type of thing. So I have taken it out and I have drained the water, and the fleece is quite hot right now, so I'm going to let it cool here in the laundry room, and then once it all cools off, then I'm going to take some old towels and lay it on the towels and roll it up to get some of the excess water out, and then I'll put it outside in a shady area to dry, and that's it. It does take some time. You have to set your timers, you have to keep going and checking it, It's a lot like baking bread. You know, you have these steps you have to follow, but you know, you can do stuff in between while you're waiting. Windy today. Make a little sausage. Yeah, just step on it. So I just spread it out over 2 chairs here on this warm summer day to dry. So yeah, so there is my washed fleece. I keep it in these paper bags after it's washed while I'm working with it, while I'm processing it. I've got 2 of these so far. And I wanted to show you the lock before and after washing. So this is the before, and this is the after. So you can tell what happened is the lock shrunk up. In its natural state off the sheep, it's about 4 inches. And then after washing, it's sort of shrunk up to about 3.5 inches. So far I have carded up a bat and spun it up. And I'm experimenting with some different preparations. So I spun the bat woolen style and created this little skein here. So it's a typical woolen style yarn, very fluffy, very light. Not as consistent as I usually spin woolen. I think the merino poses its own challenges. I think because it is such a fine fiber, the fibers want to hang on to each other. I didn't have any trouble drafting or anything. It's just that the yarn has got some, irregularities. So my next experiment is to take the same amount, about 1 ounce. This is only 1 ounce. It's quite a lot of yarn for 1 ounce. And I'm going to comb it and spin it worsted style. And then make another little hank like this. And then I'm going to do some swatching and see what I like best with the fiber. It is very, very lovely, very soft. And as you can see, it's pretty much this is like when you're a little kid and you got a stuffed animal. Now get this is what the fleece looks like. It's quite beautiful. And quite easy to, actually the carding went pretty well, as you saw. I just flicked the locks and sent them through the drum carder, and I got very few neps. And I think that's partly because I've used a super fine carding cloth on my Strouch fine carder. But I do think the fleece would be very amenable to combing because of the staple length. So I think there's a lot of variety. If you have a fleece that's about 3 to 4 inches, you've got a lot of different varieties. But I am seeing a difference in staple lengths in the fleece. So some of the locks are closer to 4 inches, and then others are quite short. So I think I'm going to take some of the prime locks that are all the same length and comb it up. And I'm going to use my Valkyrie extra fine combs, and I'm going to use my new hackle. I've had a hackle for a while. I purchased a Major Craft hackle a while ago, and I've done just a little bit of experimenting with it. And so I'm going to use that to create a very large 1 ounce nest of comb top and spin it worsted style on my spindles. And then I'm really curious to see and do a comparison of the two and see where I want to proceed. So I'm thinking that I'd love to make a beautiful big blanket or a big shawl, a big wrap. Not sure I'm going to do a sweater. I'm not a great sweater knitter. I've knit a few sweaters, but I haven't really decided. But one of the things I've realized since the last time I recorded is how long this whole process takes. When you watch a podcaster and they're sporting their hand-spun sweater from fleece, just realize how many hours and hours and hours it took for them to create the yarn and make that garment. It's quite something. It's easy to say, oh yeah, that's really pretty, and just, you know, but it's very significant, I think, because I've been feeling a little anxious about producing faster, and I forget that the whole process is slow. It's not a fast process, and just to enjoy every step along the way. Do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel like you're not producing fast enough, or it's just you want everything done now, and you want to do all the things now? So I think part of that is because I've recently retired, and I sort of have this frenzy of feeling like I have to get everything done and do all the things now, and then the days go by and I'm not getting anything done. And anyways, craft should not be a source of anxiety. So. All right, next up I wanted to talk a little bit about my spindle spinning. So I've been mainly working on this beautiful roving that I received as in a package with some spindles that I purchased. Last week I spoke about Vermont spindles over on Etsy, and Bill generously puts in quite a bit of roving into your box. So he gives about a little over 2 ounces in each of the boxes, and so I have about 8 ounces. So that kind of gives you an idea how many spindles I purchased. But there's, yeah. So every time I buy a spindle, he gives me more of this fiber. So what I'm doing with this is I'm spinning it into a thick, bulky single, and I'm using a variety of spindles. This one is a Kundert spindle. He was a maker in Wisconsin. He's no longer making spindles, I don't believe. And I'm creating a nice, thick, bulky single along the lines of Malabrigo worsted. It's a little bit thicker, but it's in the ballpark of a heavy worsted or an Aran weight. So I'm using this beautiful cherry spindle, my very first spindle I ever purchased. And then I'm also using this heavy spindle from Bosworth. It's a heavier spindle, but 1.5 to 2 ounces. And then this one's got a lot of fiber on it, so let me be careful. Trying not to do too many joins. With the bulky yarn, I'm finding it harder to make the joints nice and smooth with a bulky yarn. So I have this flower vase, and I've got just a strip of roving in there, and I am spinning this one. This one is a True Creations spindle, which is also a very lovely maker. So yeah, and then I one more spindle I'm using here. This one. This one is my Vermont spindle. It's spalted tamarind. And this is one of Bill's, he calls them Alta, which it's, I forget what it means. I'll write it down in the, I'll do a little title here. He does 2 basic models so far, actually 3. I lied. So he makes the American Beauty, which is here named after the rose. And then he's making one, this is called the American Beauty Alta. I think Alta means deep. And then he also makes a mini. And this is one of his minis. This is walnut. I'll talk about this one in just a moment. So yeah, I'm using this one. I'm using the heavier spindles to create my bulky yarn. I have some video I took last week of me spinning this that I'll insert right here. I spin thick, I do shorter lengths. Go deep into the fiber. So I don't get a large amount at a time, but I want a low twist singles. Gotta watch for backspin. There we go. I think this spindle's almost 2 ounces. Shorter length, but maybe about a yard at a time. Couple, maybe 2/3 of a yard, less than a year, I would say. Short forward, fast. Low twist. My girl. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. And I open up the twist. But yeah, just this roving just seemed to want to spin. For me, it just wanted to spin thicker. I think it's a Corriedale, or I guess it's from Peru, so I don't know what kind of sheep they have there. But yeah, I'm enjoying the spin. I'm trying to remain versatile in my spinning and spin a variety of weights. So yeah, so I'm kind of excited about that. I do have a project for this planned, which I'll talk about a little bit later when I talk about the books I have to review today. So what else do I have? So from the bulky to the very fine, I'm spinning this beautiful fiber. This is some merino silk that I also got from Vermont Spindles. This actually came with this mini. It's a terrific value. Not only are his spindles affordable, they're very good spinners and just a delight to work with. But he also gives you a significant amount of roving to get started right away. So if you're a new spinner, or if you think you want a foray into spindle spinning, and go ahead and buy a spindle and you'll get some roving to practice with. So I'm spinning this very fine, and I'm using, going to do it into a 2-ply. So I'm using this spindle, and then I'm also using this little guy here. this is a spindle wood spindle. I think it's made out of Hawaiian koa wood, and it's very, very, very light. I mean, it's probably maybe a half an ounce, if that. And it's one of these square spindles that he's famous for, in a beautiful spindle. He puts this little brass weight in there, and I think that that helps with the momentum, especially, excuse me, if it's a very light spindle. So, yeah, and with this one, you just, I just put it at 3 o'clock. I call the back of the spindle 6 o'clock. And so I put it at 3 o'clock. And so I'm just doing the two. I'm going to do a 2-ply. And I'm trying to spin really, really thin. I notice I stick my little finger out when I spin. There we go. So what I think I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pair it with I have a BFL silk blend that I've been working on for several years. And I think the two together, I think this with a blue would be beautiful in a little lace project. I think I got a little too thin there. Sometimes if I get a little too thin, I just pull it off and start over again. You know, it's just yarn. It's low. It's not turning out the way you want. Just start over. All right, I have 2 hand-spun projects, one finished and one is a work in progress. I think I'll show you my finished project first. So these are my handspun socks. Last time I recorded, all they needed was the Kitchener closing at the toe, which I was putting off because they don't know how to do it. And I think I have to do it a lot more to get proficient, but I did close the toes. They're done. They fit me, and I'm really, really happy with them. Actually, they fit me perfectly. The pattern I used was this one. Basic sock by Church Mouse Yarns. A wonderful pattern, especially for a relatively new sock knitter such as myself. The yarn I used was these 2 colors. This one was a bat I made out of Shetland silk and alpaca. And I have a really funny picture of my husband that I'll insert here. So when it came off the carder, it looked like this huge beard. So I'll show you that picture. You're going to laugh there. Woolen spun 2-ply, and then this is the red, which is Cardinals from Dakota Carding and Wool. I actually have more of that roving to spin. Stay organized here. So here it is. This is that right here. Dakota Carding and Wool. It's Kelly over Dakota Carding and Wool. She runs a mill in, I think it's South Dakota, and she makes these fiber bats. They're basically clouds of fiber taken off the drum, and super, super easy to spin woolen yarn. This huge bag. Oh, it also smells wonderful. She uses some sort of herbs in it. It smells so good. So yeah, this is 4 ounces. So what I was thinking of doing is spinning this up and making the mirror image or the inverse of the other pair of socks. So I'm going to do a red sock and then use the gray for the heels, toes, and cuffs. So I thought that might be fun, kind of like fraternal twins. I think that's the next pair of socks I'm going to start. I knit the socks on a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter needle. I knit them simultaneously, one on double points and one with the magic loop method, and they turned out exactly the same. So my gauge was spot on with both methods. And what I did is I knit the cuff of one and then the cuff of the other and then the leg of one and the leg of the other. And then I had the two socks at the end just to finish up. And I think that that's the way I'm going to do it moving forward, because I would definitely have second sock syndrome and be unable to complete the other socks. I'd have single socks everywhere around the house. All right. So the other handspun project I'm working on is a shawl. Let me put this fiber here. And this is called the Botanic Shawl by Stephen West. Here's a picture of Stephen's shawl. I think he used a solid color, and then he used a self-striping yarn. I think he used Zauber Ball Crazy for the contrast. And I'm using handspun for this. Try to stay organized here. I have too many projects on the go. Do you ever feel like that? So I don't know, I'm a hopeless case, I think. I think I'm always going to have several projects on the go. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm going to change. But here is the yarn that I'm using. My microphone is getting in the way here. So, oops, I just lost a ball. Okay, so here's the yarn. This is Romney that I hand combed and spun semi-worsted style on my double treadle wheel, which is over here. And all the minis are naturally dyed fibers from Inglenook Fibers that I spun quite a while ago. I spun them up on my Turkish spindles and then just applied them onto themselves. So this is what I have left. And here is my shawl. You guys are going to laugh. This was hibernating since last summer. I had decided I would make this shawl, and I think I posted something on Instagram, and Kia from the Kia's Boat podcast, which I highly recommend, by the way. So that's a great idea. Let's do a knit along. Well, she was done lickety split, and I started and then I stopped. It was so funny. I picked up the project and I couldn't remember where I was. It's a 24 row repeat, and I was using one of these to keep track of the rows, and I didn't lock it, so I didn't know what row I was on. And I mean, it took me a surprising amount of time to figure out where I was in the pattern, and lo and behold, I had completed the 24 row repeat and put it in hibernation. So I'm going to try to do better, try to finish more things. So let me show you the shawl so far. So it's not a gradient. It's more color block, really. I tried to fade the colors in, but you can see they're quite distinct from one another. It's got a very nice, tidy I-cord edge and an I-cord cast on. So it's kind of a nice finish, a nice detail on the shawl. And it is knitting up quite beautifully. Yeah, it's a very, the Romney is a long wool, and the minis had a lot of, I think they had some long wool in them too, the fiber bats that I got. So it has this very crisp feel. It's not itchy per se, it's just got this nice crisp feel to it. I actually think this yarn would make a beautiful lace because of the ply twist and the two-ply nature. It tends to drape, and the stitches kind of stay open. So you notice that the stitches don't really fill in. You can see the stitches very clearly. So yeah, I'm going to continue to work on this and hopefully have it done in the next couple of weeks, so the next time I record, I'll have a finished object. So I forget how nice it was to knit with handspun. It's very, I like the texture, the garter ridges here. Yeah, Stephen West is really a genius. I'd like to knit some more of his projects, but his patterns, but I don't know about the color selection, and they require a lot of yarn. But I'm thinking I'd like to do one of his brioche works, maybe Exploration Station with different handspun. I think that would really be fun. He's got his channel now. He's always had YouTube channels on tutorials, but now he's got another one where they're a little longer. He's just a hoot. He's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for something entertaining, go ahead and check out Stephen West. I was going into my bookshelf here and looking at all my spinning books, and I found this gem of a book. This is Yarnworks by W.J. Johnson. And there are a lot of books on spinning. This one is quite good. The sheer breadth of information in here is sort of astounding. You can see I've got all my tags there. So the book is set up like this. It has different workshops. You can see here. So she has about fiber, and then spinning, and then dyeing, and then knitting. It's very, very comprehensive. And she's got some lovely little patterns in the back. And the one that I had my eye on for my bulky singles yarn is these mittens here. They're Sami mittens. Now she embellished hers with buttons, but I think I would embellish mine with embroidery or beads. What I found really interesting about this book is she gives detailed information about dyeing, and then in the appendix of the book, here's another little notions bag. And nice little projects you can do with your handspun. But her appendix in this book, I've never seen a book like this where she has all the details of the things she talked about in the regular chapters. And the thing that I found really useful is this section on being your own fiber chemist, how to blend fibers. She's got some really good information about the percentages and how to determine the percentage. She has a section on determining how much fiber you would need for any particular project, in a ballpark fashion there. Fiber storage and pests, wheel maintenance, adjusting your spinning wheel, measuring your twists per inch, measuring your angle, all the, getting into the weeds of spinning, but it's in the appendix. So as you read through the rest of the chapters, you don't get overwhelmed with too much information. And the thing that really got me interested and inspired was this section on dyeing. because she gives detailed information about numbers and percentages, and just really very, very comprehensive. And as a matter of fact, I purchased this because I did do some hand dyeing some years ago, and I just sort of like threw dye in a pot and threw fiber, and I didn't really measure anything. But she's got this information here about weight of goods and depth of shade and everything like that. So I bought a cute little pocket scale so that I could weigh out the dye stuffs. Now, if I could only figure out how to open this. Oh, here we go. So here it is. I'll link this one below. What I found was really nice about this digital scale is its cover is also a tray. So it's got its own little tray on there. Of course, my husband says, you're not going to do hand dyeing in the kitchen with the marble countertops, are you? I said, no, honey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use your camping stove and do it outside. He goes, oh, okay, that's okay. So yeah, she's got the color wheel, dye quantities based on depth of shade. I know this information is in different books. You know, you can buy books on dyeing and you can buy books on spinning, but this book has it all. The only thing, she's basically a worsted spinner, and the instructions on spinning long draw or true woolen isn't really very comprehensive, but it's a good basic book. I mean, she's got everything in here. I mean, from preparing the fiber, all the tools you could possibly want or need. I highly recommend this book. Again, the book is Yarnworks by W.J. Johnson. And I'll put a link to the book in the description. The last thing I wanted to talk about is a novel that I've been reading and an author that's a favorite. And the name of the book, the author is Alexander Mcall-Smith. He's a very prolific writer. He's a Scottish, I think he lives in Scotland. He's just very prolific. He's got lots of books. One of the series that I've read is the #1 Ladies Detective Agency. This is the last one in this that's available. That I picked this up from my local library. It's the next book I'm going to read. But I picked this little book up, The Good Pilot, Peter Woodhouse. And you guys, this book made me cry. It made me laugh. I'm only halfway through it, but it's just such a charming story. Mcall-Smith's got this way of portraying human nature and human characters, the foibles and the graces of just normal, everyday human beings. He's just sort of the humanity of each character is just painted so beautifully in all of his books. And this particular book is about right towards the end of World War II, and the main character, Val, is a land girl, and she falls in love with an American pilot, and it's about their love story and a dog. He definitely has a dog in his life because the good pilot, Peter Woodhouse, is a dog. So if you like love stories, if you like books that will just sort of remind you of the goodness of people, of most people, he's a really great writer for that. I highly recommend him if you're interested in just the heartwarming stories that not overly sentimental, but just really charming, and they always make me happy reading him. So I'm not a great reader of novels, but usually in the summer I do try to read a couple. If you have any suggestions for novels or writers, I would love to hear them. If you could mention in the comments. So you can reach me via email at soulfulspinning@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment below the video. You can also message me on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm the Soulful Spinner because Soulful Spinning was taken. So I'm the Soulful Spinner on Instagram. You can message me over there. I'd love to hear from you. So that's it for me today. Upcoming in future episodes, I do have another fleece that I want to share with you and show you my process. I'll leave you a little teaser here. And I also want to demonstrate my hackle. I made a beautiful comb top, blended top, and spun a really sweet skein of yarn. I don't think I have, here it is. So I'm going to show you in a future episode how I made this. And yeah, so I've got lots more fiber content upcoming. I hope this video found you well, and I look forward to talking with you in the comments. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.